David Cameron is holding crucial talks in Brussels, where he hopes to gain support for his EU reform demands. The Prime Minister is due to discuss the renegotiation with European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker and senior MEPs. This comes ahead of a two-day summit of EU leaders, which begins on Thursday. On Monday, EU Council President Donald Tusk said negotiations over the UK's demands were at a critical moment and warned the risk of breakup is real. Mr. Tusk is overseeing the negotiation, and was speaking after talks with the Romanian and French presidents as part of a tour of European countries ahead of the summit later in the week. He said, "This is a critical moment. It is high time we started listening to each other's arguments more than to our own. It is natural in negotiations that positions harden, as we get closer to crunch time. But the risk of breakup is real because this process is indeed very fragile. Handle with care. What is broken cannot be mended." At the European Commission, the Prime Minister will meet Mr. Juncker, who said on Monday that he expected the child benefit proposals to be at the heart of debate this week, and it looks to be one of the key sticking points in any deal. Speaking to BBC Radio 4's Today programme, Czech Europe Minister Tomáš Prauza said he expected Mr. Cameron's planned curbs to child benefit for EU migrants would only apply to new applicants, and not affect the existing 34,000 migrants in the UK who receive it. Downing Street has so far refused to say whether the proposed changes to child benefit would apply to existing, as well as new, applicants. The move is likely to prompt further accusations that the PM is having to water down his demands, having originally proposed halting the payment of child benefit altogether. Instead, the benefit payments would be linked to the cost of living in the country where the child lives, under the terms of the draft deal. Eastern European countries are also uneasy that other EU countries may seek to copy the changes on child benefit and in work benefits being proposed by the UK. After talks between Mr. Cameron and French President François Hollande in Paris late on Monday, a Downing Street spokesman said they had held constructive discussions on the UK renegotiation. They agreed that we are making good progress, and that the draft text from the European Council provides a firm basis to reach agreement at this week's summit, the spokesman said. BBC Europe correspondent Chris Morris says, David Cameron begins his day at the European Parliament, where he needs to win some friends. The Prime Minister has said repeatedly that his proposed deal with the rest of the EU will be legally binding, but several parts of it will require legislative changes that will need the support of MEPs, and of other EU countries, after a British referendum. Mr. Cameron wants guarantees that that will happen, but it's a difficult thing to pin down. If a deal is agreed on the PM's reforms, he will hold a cabinet meeting on Friday evening, sources have told the BBC. Downing Street has said ministers cannot speak out until the cabinet has met to agree a government position, and it had been claimed this would give the Remain campaign an unfair head start if a meeting was delayed until the following week. Mr. Cameron is seeking key changes on European integration, business competitiveness, benefits restrictions, and the operation of the Eurozone. The Prime Minister has promised an in-out referendum on whether the UK should remain within the EU by the end of 2017.